Mateo Quaripe is here with those stories and more. Mateo, of course, Woolworths says that it's tough to get customers in store. I'm surprised, because whenever I go to Woolworths, it's busy.
It is quite busy, but in terms of the sales that they make, it's not so great, especially on the clothing and hardware part and the furniture part of the business. And it's really, a tough one for them to get those sales up, and they declined by 3.3%. But when you look at the food business, although they increased their prices by 1%, which was far greater than their counterparts, they actually saw a 7.2% increase in terms of food. People seem to like or prefer food from Woolies as well. So that part of the business actually saving face this time around for this half-year report. But of course, they took some losses from the Australian business, David Jones. But they're saying they're forecasting a great deal of profits coming through because that once-off item has now been handled in terms of that Australian business, and they're looking into the future and saying their food business is the one that's going to be, heading the way. But in terms of the market, well, there were 6 cents down today at market close because of that update, and saying that, the fashion and home division is not really doing all that great.
Maybe it's because it's too expensive. Hint, hint. Anyway, let's move on to Vodacom, growing investments in Tanzania. Tell us more about that.
Definitely. The East of Africa, in terms of technology, that's where you need to be. And Vodacom extending that in Tanzania and saying really taking up a 26% stake, now having a stake of about 75% in Tanzania, which, lets them drive most of the business. They take on the responsibility now. Of course, the deal is, still going to be looked at by the competition authorities there and the market authorities as well. But this allows them to, gain hold of the East African part of the business, especially since they have Kenya and South Africa, and some of the Kenyan and South African strategies can now be taken into the Tanzanian business. When you look at the results that came through from Vodacom Tanzania, you could see that in terms of data as well as in terms of subscribers, they actually had an increase there, although some of those increases in profits were hit by regulations for call rates there as well. But it's a business that is likely to grow and has a better internet connection on the continent.
And then Medi-clinic disappointing the markets today. Why?
Well, their business in terms of Middle East and South Africa is still doing well. South African business up 1%, but the problem mainly was the 8% fall in earnings in the Switzerland business, and that's because, there's a lot of regulations that came in of outpatient tariffs in Switzerland that saw them lose a lot of money. In fact, their CEO saying that, they're going to stop having a capital injection in Switzerland and look at the other businesses, because what they're currently dealing with in terms of regulations, they still have to look at efficiencies in that particular business and make sure that they're delivering what the market wants. Because Medi-clinic is, in fact, that Switzerland business, his London, if I'm pronouncing correctly, is still, one of the businesses that is the major part of the hospital business in Switzerland in terms of private businesses. But it's not doing well because of that outpatient system that they have to still sort out. But, it did hinder a lot of their performance today. They could have had better results if they had just focused on the South African ones. And their primary listing in the FTSE 100 in London, and their secondary listing here showing that, there were some weaknesses in their business.
All right, thanks for that. Appreciate it. Mateo Quaripe.